So now that we've addressed poverty as a social problem and recognized how poverty is something that actually affects everyone in the US, not just poor people, let's take a closer look at how poverty actually manifests in the United States. So before reading the actual chapter for this week and viewing the presentations, I asked you to watch a video and to actually play an online game. So the video was an individual, Ms. Hutchinson, who was addressing Congress about this issue of poverty. And then the game is called Spent. And so hopefully you played it, but just in case you didn't, I thought I'd run through just a quick version of it here. Essentially, the objective of this game is to kind of provide a real-life simulation of what it's like to live in or near the poverty line, and to try and what you have to go through as an individual in that situation to try and counter or not enter homelessness, right? So the first thing it asks us to do is find a job. It then provides us the few options of jobs that we could likely get. And these are jobs that typically wouldn't require you to have anything beyond a high school education, or maybe not even a high school education. So one option is working in a warehouse. One option is working in a restaurant. The other one is being a temp worker. So it looks like the job that we selected, the salary is $8 an hour, but you have to buy your uniform. So every month our take-home pay is going to be $1,048. So $8 an hour, right? And this is including tips. Like, this is a really generous wage for a restaurant worker. I've worked in the service industry my entire college career. So all 11 years I was in college, I was waiting tables and bartending. And I usually got paid about $2.40 an hour, right? Plus tips. So imagine being at the mercy of other people to make your income. But even getting $8 an hour, the monthly take home is only $1,048. So this is above minimum wage. A minimum wage at the federal level in the US is currently $7.25 an hour, right? So this is a really generous salary for a server, but like it says, really depends on the business, obviously, and the tips that you receive. So it's just going to ask us a series of questions. You know, Affordable Care Act requires that we get health insurance. The good news, your child is covered by the state. The bad news, you aren't. It asks what plan we want to pay for. This one, the gold plan, $329 a month. Wow, that's over a third of our monthly income. The silver plan, $268. Bronze plan, the lowest plan, $230 a month. Or we could opt out, but then we have to pay a monthly penalty. And then, of course, opting out means we don't have health insurance. What happens if we get sick? You know, we could be left with, you know, a medical bill that is tens of thousands of dollars. So let's go for the most affordable plan, the bronze plan. All right. Even the most basic plan, Affordable Care Act, covers more than what you would have gotten before. But at almost $60 each paycheck, it's no free ride. Okay. So we need to find a place to live. If we live closer to our place of work, which looks like it must be closer to the city, it obviously costs more. Living further away costs less. So let's, I guess, live far away. That's 50 miles away from our work, just so we can save some money. So we chose to live further away from your job, so our rent is lower, but our gas costs are higher, so kind of shot ourselves in the foot there. For every dollar a working family saves on housing, they spend an additional 77 cents on transportation. So didn't really save a whole lot of money there, it looks like. Oof, down to only $240. Our apartment is too small for our stuff. What do you want to do? Rent a storage unit, have a yard sale, or ask a friend on social media if they can store it for us. Well, let's assume that you're someone like me who moved to a new city. You don't have any friends to store your stuff, so I guess I'll have a yard sale, try and make a little extra money. Sold a bunch of stuff, but only made $150. Well, better than nothing, and we're on day 5. Let's see if we can make it to the end of the month here. Child wants to join an after-school sports team, which requires a physical and a uniform. What do you want to do? Say yes pay $50 for the physical and for the uniform, or say no. I know a lot of you are probably being savage and saying, no, you can't do it, we got to save the money, but I'm going to presume that it would be very difficult to tell my child, no, they can't do this, so I'll cough up the $50. Family pet is sick and won't get better without treatment. What do you want to do? Pay for treatment, have it put to sleep, or let your pet suffer. Oh my gosh, this is heart-wrenching. I have 2 dogs, they're my babies. I honestly couldn't put my pet to sleep. I would pay for the treatment, but I didn't have the money. I'm out of money. So in this instance, I ran out of money on day 6. So I couldn't even make it a week living in this situation on the edge of poverty. So, you know, you can play this game a couple different times. Obviously, the choices that you select are going to have different incomes or different outputs depending on the decisions that you make, but hopefully what you took away from playing this game, and most definitely from listening to Ms. Hutchison's heartfelt testimony to Congress, is that, living in poverty isn't as simple or as individualistic as we're often led to think as Americans, right? I mean, just listening to some of the examples that Ms. Hutchinson brings up in her testimony about women, or specifically women, but individuals that are working multiple jobs, and still struggling to get by, and then finding out that, some of the government assistance, this federal assistance that is supposed to be helping people of lower socioeconomic status, right? So things like welfare, etc. If you end up making too much money, right? If you go a simple dollar over what is considered the poverty line in the US, which we'll address in just a minute here, you can lose all of those benefits. So it's almost punishing people who are trying to escalate and grow out of poverty, because the amount of federal assistance that they would lose if they make too much money in terms of income would actually be far more detrimental to the well-being of their family. So it's saying, yes, we want you to get out of poverty, but if you get too far out of poverty, you're going to lose all of your government assistance. So your family is actually going to be worse off because you're going to be making less money in the long run because you're losing this government financial assistance than you would be if you were working multiple jobs and trying to sustain yourself without any government assistance. So it's really a broken system that really is essentially saying you're screwed if you do, you're screwed if you don't. So how do we expect individuals in the US to get out of poverty if they're really set up for the structural system of disadvantage? So I really hope you'll consider these two pieces, playing the game spent, and also Ms. Hutchison's testimony, when you're replying to the weekly discussion questions this week, especially in your EOPs and your comments. I'd love to hear how these particular pieces of content impacted your perception on poverty as being an individualistic problem. All right. So how do we actually measure poverty in the United States? Well, poverty became a pretty central concern in the U.S., specifically in the 1960s. Coming out of the World Wars, we were doing fairly well as an economy right out of the wars. And then in the 1960s, we started to see a real kind of like sharp economic decline. We started to see a growing number of people living in poverty, more so than we ever had in the past. So to try and resolve that, the government established what we call now the poverty line. And essentially, it was a measure of income used by the United States government to determine who would be eligible for federal subsidies, programs, and benefits, right? So essentially, the government decided, all right, there's going to be this cutoff line in terms of income. And if an individual or a family makes an income that is below this level, they would be eligible to receive some form of government financial aid, essentially, right? So things like welfare, food stamps, etc., to help them just essentially live, to pay for the necessities that they and their family needs. So how was this poverty line calculated? Well, at that point in time, again, this was in the 60s now, right? So over 50 years ago, the government decided that they estimated that the average American spends about a third of their income on food, okay? So they calculated what they thought an average American spent on food each year, and then they multiplied that by 3, okay? And that was the formula that they got. So they estimated roughly that, at that point in time, American spends X amount of dollars on food. Let's say it was about, $5,000. So the poverty line would be calculated by taking $5,000 times 3, and that would give a poverty line of $15,000. So any American that made $15,000 or less would be eligible to receive this kind of federal financial aid to help them pay for food, help them pay for cost of living, help them pay for clothing, essentially just the necessities, right? And this formula, calculating the average annual food expenditure and multiplying it times 3, continues to be the formula that we use to measure poverty today, all right? So this is what the poverty line looks like in the US today. So for a household of one, right? So let's say you're a single person, no kids, etc. The poverty line is set at $12,760. So this means that in 2020, the government estimated the average American spends about $4,200 on food a year, right? So they took that $4,200 some dollars, multiply it by 3, and that's how they get this amount of $12,760. So if you're an American making $12,760 or less a year, you're currently living in poverty, right? And this is if you're single, right? A single person household. Okay. Now, if you have a dependent, right? So let's say you are a single parent with one child, the poverty line, raises a little bit, right? So that means that if you have two people in your household, for example, a single parent with one child, you could make $17,240 or less and still be considered living in poverty, right? So essentially what the government is calculating here is they're saying that for having a child in your household, right, increasing your household threshold to two people instead of one, it should cost you about an extra $5,000 a year to pay for that child. Now, I don't know how many of you out there have kids or are aware of what they cost, but a child definitely costs more than $5,000 a year in terms of feeding, clothing, healthcare costs, education costs, all of that, right? So, but the government is saying if you have two people living in your household, we'll raise the poverty line by about $5,000. So you can make $17,240 a year and still qualify for some form of federal financial aid. And the poverty line continues to increase by about $4,000 increments for every additional dependent you have in your household. So if you are, for example, a single parent with two children, you can make $21,000. It's $21,720 or less a year and still be living in poverty, right? So an individual or family who makes even one single dollar more than the poverty line cutoff no longer is considered poor in the United States, and therefore is no longer able to receive federal funding, federal subsidies, access federal aid programs of any sort. You cannot be a single dollar above the poverty line. And they calculate this based off of your tax returns, right? Your W-2s from the previous year. So they know exactly how much money you made that was reported to the IRS. And if you make a single dollar above the poverty line, you're nixed, right? No more financial federal aid for you. And this, you see these numbers, right? See how low they are. I mean, making $12,000 a year is definitely not enough to live comfortably, right? To think about all the expenses you have, paying rent, paying electricity, your water bill, your trash bill, food, clothing, just the bare necessities, not even talking about any luxury items, things like considering the internet a luxury, or having a car payment, paying for gas for your car, right? Those would even be considered luxuries. Obviously, you cannot afford that living on or near the poverty line. So in what ways may the calculations for the poverty line be problematic? Think about this. They're using an annual food income or food budget and multiplying that times 3, right? And that was calculated in the 1960s, where they assumed that Americans spend a third of their income on food. Now, I don't know about you. I'm definitely not dropping a third of each of my paychecks on food every month, right? That seems ridiculous. That's a large amount of money to be spending on food, right? So many expenses, such as heat, electricity, childcare, transportation, healthcare, etc., they occupy a much greater percentage of the typical family's budget than was true in 1963. The cost of all of these required essential expenses for Americans have substantially increased over the past 50 years. Americans today are definitely not spending a third of their income on food. That might have been true in the 1960s, definitely not accurate today. However, the calculations for the poverty line haven't changed. The poverty line also does not vary by state. The only exceptions are Alaska and Hawaii. Their poverty lines are a little bit higher there. But there's a huge amount of negligence occurring in terms of varying the poverty line by the cost of living by state. Certain states far more expensive to live in than others, right? Think of specifically someone living in New York City or Los Angeles or Chicago, 3 of the most expensive cities in the world. Cost of living there exceptionally higher than it is in places like small town in Texas, for example. But the poverty line doesn't vary there. So people living in those more expensive cities, expensive states, definitely at greater risk of living in poverty because the cost of living there is so much substantially higher. And even if they make above the poverty line, they're still less likely to be able to afford to pay their monthly expenses. And lastly, families making twice the poverty line are still having difficult time making ends meet. It's estimated that even living within twice amount of the income of the poverty line, so even if you make double the poverty line, you're still considered what's referred to as a low-income family in the US, and you still have a hard time just paying your essential bills on a month-by-month basis.